And it's red. And we are now streaming live.
Oh,
hey
that's
guys.
cool.
I'm here with Chris,
Hi.
like I said last night, and I was talking about a lot of things on the DELTΔ chassis last night on my RC talk.
Yeah.
But I did not know anything. So everything I said last night is not a lie. It's just I was ignorant, and there was a lot of things that I said that were not really true. Like when I was saying that the chassis is narrower, the axles are smaller, and all that. It's not true. And this is why I came here today, to actually try to learn more about this, because the only thing I saw is pictures, and you weren't too verbal on the web about this, and you were keeping it quiet and so on. So, hey Guy, hey Peter, nice that you made it. Thanks. So let's start by first question for me was, you have a lot of different chassis. You just came out last year with the C-Max chassis, which is this one. That's the C-Max, which a lot of people have been going with it, and you can go coil spring, you can go leaf spring, you can go links, half and half. There's a whole bunch of combinations you can do. And you also have the skeleton one that you've had for years. And that one works with the GK body, I believe it was, a China GK body.
It was made for the two-door Jeep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ones that you have out there. And this one does not have the capability of putting a transmission in the center, or does it now?
We just made a kit for it to turn it into a Skeleton 2, which will allow you to put a scaled drivetrain in it. But there's some anything with a centered motor like that, low transmission and centered motor, you have conflicts with the front suspension. So there's some trucks that'll work on it. Some trucks you'll definitely have a setup problem, but the Skeleton always works well the way that it's set up now. Yeah,
cool. And now you came out with this is their new chassis, the DELTΔ chassis.
Yeah.
And the DELTΔ chassis, if you look at it, it's kind of, to me, it's square. It's, well, not square. It's on an angle. Compared to this is more of a nice round finish, but this one has angles on it instead, and it quite goes high up to the front. So why make a new chassis like this? And also, like I was saying yesterday, it was narrower. It's actually wider than the C-Max. So why make this chassis?
So a whole bunch of factors went into putting the DELTΔ together as far as the design goes. First of all, we wanted to make another competition chassis. So what we've been doing for a long time with the C-Max is making a scale truck chassis that's adjustable wheelbase, that has all kinds of suspension options, as you were saying, for C-Max. But the C-Max is not specifically intended to be a Class 1 or Class 2 competition chassis. So what we went back to now is we took the link geometry that we've always loved on the Cross Canyon, on the Skeleton chassis. We took a lot of that design and engineering side for the suspension and workings of the truck. And then we turned that into a brand new chassis design. We call it DELTΔ because it's very edgy. It's not smooth and rounded, kind of like you would have on a real truck chassis. It's very edgy, very competitive designed. We made it to fit into all of the 2019 SORCA competition class rules, so that the chassis is already a drop-in for all of the SORCA rules. Maximum heights, bolt-on shock towers, all those kinds of things that are requirements for the competition classes.
You sent me a graphic. Let's go look at that graphic of what it looks like. So just bear with me. I'll just switch over. Hopefully I'll be quick and I won't do too much video feedback. So here it is. So this is on your Suzuki, the one you just built on the Suzuki body.
So this is, we've made 3 different trucks already on DELTΔ. This is the shortest wheelbase. This wheelbase is only 9.8 inches. It's 252 millimeters, which is very, very short. It's the smallest big truck that we've ever built by far. I've never actually done a competition truck on a 9.8 inch wheelbase. It's very small. And the reason I wanted to put this graphic together is to show that we don't just throw trucks together. We don't just stick parts on and put a hole here, put a hole there. There's actually some thought and engineering that goes into making the truck perform really well. Anybody that's already driven a Jeep Skeleton chassis with the two-door Jeep, you already know that wheelbase and the size and the suspension travel and the geometry, it makes a very effective, nice driving, predictable chassis. So we took a lot of the same engineering thought and added it to this.
Okay.
So showing this on the Delta, you can see here where the center of gravity is on the finished truck. So this is with a battery. It's got the running gears all in it. That's where the C of G is on the green circle. That's the center of the truck for height and for length. And so if you do the geometry math on it on the pink neutral line there, that's actually the line that's created by the truck size.
Okay.
And that shows you the suspension neutral. So if your orange lines on the rear link suspension, if your orange lines are intersecting below the neutral line, you've actually got a lifting rear axle under power. If the orange lines are above the neutral line, then you're developing anti-squat geometry in the rear suspension. And so on this one, it actually worked out to be pretty much about 50% of the way between the C of G and the neutral line. And that actually makes a very predictable driving truck.
Cool.
Yeah, it's got really nice tendencies on the uphill, where when you're under power on an uphill, you should be able to keep the front end down on the truck because it's lifting right under the center of gravity of the truck, and that's really important for predictability. And this being the shortest wheelbase, we should be able to achieve the same kind of center of gravity and instant center on the middle wheelbase and then the longer wheelbase as well. So just a little quick shot. I wanted to put that up and show that there's thought that goes into the designs.
Yeah, and I'll be posting that on my the Tank RC Facebook page also. So for people that wants to see it, so that's cool. That's nice.
Yeah, that's a fun little graphic. I like to put those up.
Yeah.
We'll do also the Toyota build when it's ready, and then we'll do the Jeep build when that picture's ready. And then the people that are wanting to build the same style of truck can actually see where the geometry's worked out to in real life in relating to the center of gravity. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm pasting the link to join into the chat also. If you guys want to come in, you're more than welcome. The link can also be found on Chris's GCM Facebook page. Yeah. Which the one you're using is the GCM Racing one. Yeah. Not the GCM Scale Garage. So GCM Racing, there's a link to join in. Or in the chat, I just posted that. You can come in. You can ask question live also. And we already have a gentleman from the UK that's in, and he was saying that he's got some built that you've actually seen, which is the drop-in flatbed for his what was it again?
It's a TRX Bronco.
TRX Bronco, yeah. Yeah. So he's got a lot of things, and it's Charles Hancock. So Charles, if you can find a live stream and just type, and people can see your YouTube channel and actually go there to actually see it, that would be awesome. Actually, I can actually post that also. So profile, let's see. Just going right there to your profile, and I don't see any YouTube video. No, it just brings me to your Google. So I don't think he has a Facebook, YouTube page, but he does have that. I think he was posting that on Facebook.
He's got an Instagram page called Scale Build. Yeah, it's really good.
Scale Build. Cool.
Yeah, I think he'll give us a link in a minute. Yeah.
If you give us a link, Charles, into the comment, I can paste it into the general comment also for people to actually follow you and follow your build. And we have RC VHX 22. Alan, that's in the chat. Vanessa, that's in the chat. Bill Biden, that's in the chat. And buy it, break it, fix it. And repeat, as in the chat also. So we're here showing off the new Delta frame that Chris has built. And when is this going to be available?
So we should have Delta trucks available in about 3 weeks. We are waiting for some of the axle parts to come in. The Delta chassis was specifically designed to work with a brand new set of axles.
So yeah, last night I was saying that the axles are actually narrower, and which is not true. I did not know better. Put foot in mouth. these are regular axle, a little narrower, I believe you said, than the SCX-N2.
So SCX-10 usually has a 183 millimeter hex width.
Okay.
These axles are 172, so they're a little bit narrower. They're almost 5 and a bit each side. So that brings the tires in a little bit, and they're pretty much the same size that you would find on something like a TF2. You can sort of see where the wheel position is on the fenders there.
So if we were to do like the TF2 and put that rubber piece on the outside, we would actually have tire time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So in the spirit of building the Delta chassis for competition, this truck is totally legal for Class 1 already. It's got full width metal bumpers on it. There's already more than half tire tuck on it, which is Class 1 legal, and it meets all the requirements to jump right into that class. And of course, we have the suspension geometry and balance already set up to I think be very competitive.
Cool. Talking about bumper, front bumper, rear bumper, because this is now a wider chassis than most of your chassis.
Yeah.
How about bumper mounts, or mounting an existing bumper from somebody else or from another company?
Yeah.
Are you going to supply something to make it work?
Yeah.
Or
so there's some really cool stuff that we've been developing for that. I'm just going to drop this off here. You can see how easy the body mounting was. So basically what we've done here is you'll see here that we've got an SSD bumper on the front, and then we've got an SSD Defender bumper on the back. These just happen to be a really close width for the Toyota body, so we're making use of these. And they're bolted directly onto the chassis cross member. So you'll see here that there's a couple of spacers. We used the original bracket off of the SSD bumper, and then we added a couple of spacers into the Delta cross member right here, and it all just bolts in. And so that's a very common width. So the whole width on the Delta cross member matches all of the bumper posts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So where the bumper post would go on an aftermarket bumper, the post is usually bolted on. So what you do is unbolt the post, put a spacer or a longer screw or whatever, and then screw it right into the Delta frame. So there's in the front, we did the same thing. We used an SSD bumper in the front, and when we just simply screwed it right into the cross member. So there's very solid bumper mounting options already built into the chassis design. You can see the two holes right there.
Yeah, so in the back, he's actually got, it might be hard to see with the glare. Here we go. There's 3 holes in there.
There's a center hole because that's nice to measure off of if you happen to need to add new holes into the cross member.
Yep.
And the thread is 10 millimeters deep inside there, so you can jam a nice big screw in it and get a real solid bumper mount.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The chassis design itself was really made to fit all of the smaller wheelbase trucks. So where you see the C-Max trucks, we build them on anything from, I've seen them on the 2-door Jeep body, but that would be pretty small for most of the common trucks that I see on C-Max. Most of them are the Hilux size, the Marlin size, Defenders. You get into the long wheelbase Defenders, the Comanches, the FJ40s, that sort of thing. They're usually around 11 inches and bigger wheelbase. So you're into the, I think it's 270s and more wheelbase per millimeters. The C-Max is really good for that because the frame is 19 inches long and you have options to go all the way up to 350 millimeter wheelbase, the big trucks. So, and then because the C-Max has all the adjustability, you can move the servo mount around. You can move the whole engine and transmission around. You can move all the cross members around, move the suspension around. So there's versatility there for the larger size trucks. The Delta is specifically designed to work with the 11.3 wheelbase, which is the Blazer, the Hilux, the Marlin, the Defenders, the FJ40. So, and then you go down one, all you do is simply move the bolts in the frame rail. You just move the suspension mounts, and the links are included in the kit to change out the wheelbase over.
Okay.
So you can go from 11.3 wheelbase to the 10.7, which fits the 2-door Jeep body.
So now you do have a Delta frame under there.
Yep. This is a Delta with the Delta 2-door body mounts. There's a new body mount in the back. There's new side plates for there. It's got a full-scale drivetrain in it. It's got the 10.7 wheelbase, which is 270. Which is it called? 272, I think.
Yep, 272.
So there's the new axles. You can see the coilover suspension geometry here on the back, and that is the middle wheelbase for Delta. Yeah, and it's all just bolt on.
That's what I was saying yesterday. That I'm just bringing it here. I was going to show the and see if I can get close to it.
Oh, there you go.
So if you can see, the shocks are actually mounted at the rear of it, but actually a little lower. So that's kind of cool. It's the first time I see that, and it's kind of neat how to mount it.
Yeah.
And what's the main reasoning of doing this?
The main reason is because the frame is flat. There's nothing at all above the frame in the back. There's no shock towers in the back to stick up. Everything is flat. So you can run a full flatbed truck in it. You can run it on the little tiny Samurai body from Elman Body Works from JS Scale. You can run it on a Toyota Hilux with a complete full drop bed right to the frame. There's no shock towers in the way, and there's no compromise on the suspension.
Okay, and you're going to be selling these as kits and also as parts. What is the kit going to include?
So the kit is, I'll show you right now, actually. We can pull this right off of here. I'll drop that body off. So this particular Delta chassis right here, if you take off the two side sliders, which are the Jeep body mounts, and this little piece right here, that's also the Jeep body mount, you would get all of that.
Okay. So you get the shocks, you actually get the axles also?
You get shocks, axles, all the axle guts are on it, the springs are on it, all the links are on it, the steering rods are on it, chassis, full drivetrain, all of the scale drive shafts are all metal, they're all in it. So basically you get this complete slider chassis that's already got a full metal drivetrain. You put in your own wheels and tires, you put your body on it, you put your favorite motor and servo in it, and then you can body mount the thing, put your battery in it, and away you go. So there's a complete slider kit. And the slider kit comes with the link kit to do the 10.7, and it comes with the link kit to do the 11.3 wheelbase. So you've already got those options depending on what body you want, and that's already included in the kit.
Okay, and another question that was from the guy that was on my channel yesterday. Are you going to have a kit that's actually assembled?
Yes. So these are, Delta is first going to be sold like this, already factory built. That's the way that they will first be sold.
So it's all going to be pre-assembled for the person, and when they get it, they're going to get it in a nice box, hopefully in a nice box, not damaged by the courier.
Well, we'll see.
And you take it out of the box. So now we're actually going to start seeing some unboxing of GCM stuff. That's going to be cool.
Yeah. So that, and then of course we've already started to develop the Shapeways store for the Delta. So the axle housing replacements are on there. The skid plate replacements are on there. We're going to add all the body mounting on there and everything like this. These side sliders for the 2-door Jeep body, they will be on the Shapeways store, but they're also free for download. So you can 3D print them at home. There's no reason to me, there's so many people with 3D printers now, there's no reason to me why people shouldn't be able to just do that at home.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we don't people that don't have it, Shapeways there.
Shapeways is there if you don't have a printer, or if you want to download it and get your neighbor to print it, or somebody else can do it, that's fine. We don't need to babysit you doing that. And the other good news about that is it's really handy for people to have the files that already work on specific bodies and stuff, because then they can modify them for their own custom builds. If you want to add a battery tray door into the slider, you can. You have the file, you can modify it and print it however you want.
Now, are people going to be able to get this before Christmas?
Yep.
So you'll have that on your site when?
Yeah, we're going to open up the pre-orders for Delta in probably less than a week.
Okay.
And then the pre-built trucks will start shipping in 3 weeks. Early on in January, we will also have a leaf spring option, which is has already been designed and everything, and it actually bolts right into the Delta chassis already with 2 wheelbases. So it uses standard Tamiya size leaf springs.
Okay. Are the leaves going to be in the front or the rear or both?
Only in the rear.
Only in the rear? Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that we learned by building the tiny truck, the Samurai, is that there's very, very little room in the front. By the time you add in the scale drivetrain and all of the track bar mounts and the steering and the servo and the scale engine, by the time you do all that, there's very, very little space left in the front of this truck, to the point that I actually had to put a tiny notch in my oil pan on my motor here just so that the track bar would have enough clearance for full travel. It's very tight. And because of that, there's simply no room to put leaf springs in the front. But we have C-Max for that.
Yeah.
The C-Max can run narrow axles. You can run all proper steering geometry on it. You can run leaf springs on the front and back, coils front and back, split coil shock, doesn't matter.
Now, the Suzuki truck is a neat truck, and we were talking just before the stream started. That's actually a 1/9 scale truck, a true scale 1/9.
It's 1 to 8.1, so it's just a little bit bigger than 1/8.
It's a little bit bigger than 1/8.
Yeah, and this is still 9.8 wheelbase. Very, very, very short wheelbase. You know, when you compare it to what's going on with the Hilux size, you know, it's very short truck.
Well, a real Samurai is a short truck.
And it's a very short truck,
and wide truck also.
Yeah.
That's what I like about this one. It does look scale, like it's not too longitudinated, whatever.
It's not stretched out funny, and the proportions are good. Yeah.
So it really looked good. Now that body comes. Where can people find that body?
So this body is for sale from JSScale.net. Actually, there's the address is right there on my sign, JSScale.net.
And the body, when you buy it, is not finished at all.
The body is ready for paint.
Ready for paint. So it's been resanded and it's been sanded.
It's a hand-built styrene body.
Okay.
And it already has the finishing done, the primer's on, and it's ready for paint.
Okay. Does it come with the interior that's in this one right now?
No. The bed is in the bed. This is all done. This is all part of the truck. So anything that you see that's white on this truck already came like that. I did cut the hood off. The hood was actually sealed onto the fenders, and I simply razor sawed the hood off and then hinged it. That was easy. And then I 3D printed some seats for it. And on our Shapeways store, we will have all the body mounts and the fuel cell available for this.
Okay.
So you can 3D print them yourself. The tunnel cover that covers the transmission in the middle, that's also available for 3D print. So it's very easy to set up an interior when all of those parts are already complete.
Now, I noticed that it is a wider, like I was mentioning earlier, it's a wider chassis than the C-Max.
Yeah.
But it's actually the same width at the skeleton. So people that are used to the width of the skeleton, this is exactly the same width. It actually fits right in there, right over the skeleton. So it's exactly the same width at the skeleton.
Yep.
Which I found very interesting.
So one of the reasons for that is because of the link geometry.
Okay.
To get the suspension to work correctly and actually have good articulation and good reliable, predictable geometry, you have to have the links in a certain place. The other reason is because the scale drivetrain has the front offset output.
Okay.
And that limits where you can put the suspension. So, you know, there's just some things there that you have to work around that. It's just mechanical size. You can't change it. So that's basically where we've had to go with the size of the chassis. It was really controlled by that. The materials on the chassis, I can describe for you. On the DELTΔ chassis, the cross members are billet machined aluminum. So you have one that you can use in the front bumper. There's two included in the kit. You can use it in the center for center body mounting or interior mounting. You can use it in the rear for bumper or front for bumper. The skid plate is 3D printed nylon, laser sintered nylon plastic. So very slippery. It's the same as the axle housings. The axle housings are also nylon, very slippery for rocks. It's great off-road. And then the two little mounts on the sides of the motor, on the sides of the engine plate, they are also 3D printed nylon. that's the perfect spot to put something like that, where it doesn't have to have any kind of extra, you know, rigidity to it or anything. Those are very strong. The nylon block for that holds the motor plate is incredibly strong.
Now, for this, you did chop to fit the Samurai. You did shorten the rear of it.
I did. I actually took the last 2 holes off of the chassis.
Okay.
It was sticking out probably 3/4 of an inch out the back of this tiny Samurai, so I snipped the back off. And there's multiple positions that you can put the rear cross member on this. As I was saying, the rear shock mounts that come with the kit, they're also adjustable, and the chassis is threaded for them, so you can service the chassis from the outside. You don't have to take the entire truck apart to get the shock mount off.
So the shock mounts at the rear are here, and you can actually see in the rear.
Yeah, there you can see the extra holes there.
The extra holes are there, so you can actually bring them back or bring them forward.
Yeah, so where you see it right now is the 10.7 wheelbase for the 2-door Jeep. If you move that back and change the links with the included suspension links, then you would end up with a 11.3 wheelbase. It's just a drop in, you know, move a few bolts.
And here you see how the transmission is actually bolted onto the side and onto the transmission. And you see the nylon.
The skid plate.
Skid plate.
Yeah. So the nylon was important to us because we've learned through building, I don't know, years of trucks now that the nylon slides really well on the rocks.
Okay.
It doesn't get hung up on any of that pointy stuff, so that's really important. We've learned that from the axle housings, very durable. And the good news is that the part is available on the DELTΔ section of our Shapeways store, so if you do happen to scratch up your skid really bad, you can replace it for something like 15 bucks.
Okay.
You know, it's easy.
Cool.
And that keeps the thing serviceable, you know. We also added some holes into the chassis that are threaded in the front and threaded in the middle. So what that means is you can just bolt on the side skids from the outside. So there's 2 holes right here that are threaded into the chassis, and all of these side mounting plates that change your body attachment, they're just bolted on from the outside. It's very easy to service. And the wheel wells also will be available for download on Shapeways, and they're 2 bolts that simply bolt right into the outside of the chassis. They're threaded. There's no nut on the inside or any of that difficult stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing I hated on some of the trucks is when you take the rock sliders out, the transmission either falls or you have to hold something else. Like it's part of something else, so it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And also the fenders, like in one of my kits, if I want to take the fenders off, well, I have to take the shocks off. Yeah. So it's kind of annoying, but you seem to fix the way to do that.
The other thing that we did is we like to use these shocks, which are included in the kit. These are 58 millimeters. That for a lot of guys have a hard time actually wrapping their head around that, because some guys are still trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger shocks.
Yeah, they're trying to get longer shock, like 90 millimeters,
90s, 100s, whatever. Yeah, so sometimes it's hard to convince people that you can get a very good performing truck on a smaller shock, and you can. Yeah. You know, we've been using these 58 millimeter shocks for probably 3 or 4 years now on a huge number of builds. And so we've proven that they work very well.
Now, what's going to happen if somebody does put a longer shock on this? What's going to happen? It's going to change the geometry? Is it still going to perform as good? What is it going to do?
That's a really valid question, actually. So one of the things that has to be made mention of when it comes to chassis design is that the way that the links are lined up on the chassis and the way that they interact with the suspension travel, that actually controls your performance. So every chassis manufacturer, SCX10 and everybody has to design the suspension so that it's working with the shocks and the travel that they provide for you. That's what they have to do. They have to engineer it to work together. So that's what we've done. We've engineered it to work together with this amount of suspension travel, there's no conflicts on any of the suspension, the way that they have been designed. Mm-hmm. So can you change the shocks? Yes, you can change the shocks. But you may end up having some suspension conflicts. So at some point, you can't drop the suspension out too much. Eventually something's gonna
But if somebody
conflict.
does, they can either lengthen their links. But if they lengthen it, by the time you're at full squat or full compression, then it actually pulls out. And then when it goes back out,
so we have to engineer the chassis to work in a certain way, and so we've done it to work with these small shocks. They're very effective at holding up a truck even of this weight. So as you know, this truck has some mass to it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, you know, probably 8 pounds or something. I haven't weighed it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was over 8 pounds. It has a steel cage in it and a lot of stuff going on. And the way that this truck sits, it's, when you let it go, it sits on the shocks maybe only a few millimeters from its own weight. Mm-hmm. So obviously these shocks are strong enough and the springs are strong enough to hold it up.
One thing that I found real neat with this is that you have there's actually a metal roll cage in there. You make
it has
this?
A full steel cage. Yeah.
You make the roll cage. Okay.
Yep.
So he's got a roll cage in there, but also the interior is so neat. It's going to be hard to show this, but he's actually got keys in there also.
Yeah.
Now, and seat belts that are actually, looks like they're working, but they're not, but they're actually very neat.
Yeah.
Looking. That's why I was showing the picture yesterday. Yeah. These seat belts, or the way they're made, the way they're 3D printed, is that something that's downloadable somewhere, or the dash is downloadable somewhere? Where did you get all this stuff?
Good question. So the dash actually comes completely already pre-done by the body manufacturer. So the Samurai came with a complete styrene dashboard that was already manufactured.
Okay, so the dashboard does come with it, but the seats don't.
The seats don't. I found the seats on Thingiverse.
Okay.
I looked up car seats on Thingiverse and I found these. I changed the file size and cleaned them up a little bit, and they've turned into a pretty good replica seat. The seat belts actually was a racing harness that I got from Exclusive RC.
Okay.
It was a 5-point harness, and so I chopped up the 5-point clip out of the middle of it and ended up with the shoulder belts and the floor belts as well. So it was all great. You see, I put these little Defender steel hinges in the front.
Yeah, where do you get those little
things? They came from Boom Racing. They're actually made for the doors on a Raffi D90.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're a metal hinge replacement for that, and you can slam that. You won't open it again. But
no, it's locked. You got to pull a little lever inside to disable it.
Oh, I wish.
There's a big. There's 2 magnets. They're round magnets. They're strong.
For you. There's. I actually overdid it on the magnets pretty bad. I probably should have used 1/4 inch or something in the front, but I had 1/2 inch ring magnets, which will usually hold an entire truck body. And so the hood slams down with a vengeance. Yeah, it won't come up when you're driving. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Not that one. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very neat truck. What I like about this truck also is when you actually compress. Let me close the hood. When you compress this thing, it actually fits right in the wheel wells. It's just amazing how this wheel actually fits right in there. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, when you do the side flex, it rubs right up into the wheel well.
Yeah,
like it's just perfect stuff there. It's great. Cool. So we try to engineer this one to be competitive on the trail and have very predictable driving characteristics, but also not be unrealistic in its proportions. So the wheel travel is quite realistic for a real truck.
Okay.
Even on the Hilux build, which has the 11.3 long wheelbase, it has more than enough tire flex to drive over its own tire. So, I mean, that's very realistic. You don't need any more actual wheel flex than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously in the shorter wheelbase, it gets a little bit smaller because of it's so much shorter. But that's what this suspension geometry will already allow you to do and still have a really solid, good geometry.
Cool. So coming back to the 3 type of chassis you have, you have this one, which is the man, the name keeps skipping.
That's the skeleton.
Skeleton.
The skeleton is specifically designed to work with a 3-gear transmission. It's a very good setup for performance. It's also a very good setup for somebody.
3-gear transmission. You're saying that's the one from the old SCX10 there?
It's the SCX10 transmission design. That's correct, with this external spur gear.
Yeah.
And the transmission housing that you see here was, I think, from eBay or something. It's an aluminum case.
Now, if somebody has an SCX10-2, does that fit in there?
The SCX10-2 has a one-piece transmission housing. The gray plastic housings will not work in a skeleton.
Okay.
The gear set will work, but you're going to have to replace the plastic housing with an aluminum.
But these transmission are available everywhere.
They're available everywhere. The OG transmissions all fit. So that's what the skeleton was intended for. Really, was for the two-door Jeep body. And it's a good performing truck. We have a rear battery tray available for it from Shapeways and bumper mounts and stuff.
Now, if somebody wanted to build something really scale but not compete with it, the C-Max would be the chassis to choose?
The C-Max would be the chassis to choose, but it's also very competitive.
Okay.
So, but the C-Max is intended to be a very scale replica style of chassis, where you can use replica suspension. We have 2 different radius arms set up to make a really good natural match suspension. That chassis is a really good match for the JS Scale Range Rover that they just released.
Okay.
Because we have Toyota radius arms for that. That's a match for that suspension, coil spring, split shock in the back. But to say that the C-Max chassis is not competitive, that would be wrong. It's just intended for a more adjustable and longer wheelbase style of truck. Yep.
And then you've created the new one, which is the DELTΔ. That's to be more competitive. In other words, the geometry of the suspension and the links are very competitive with anti-squats and a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yep. And it's also intended for the shorter wheelbase trucks. So whereas the C-Max will allow you to have a much longer wheelbase, the DELTΔ is limited to 11.3 with the geometry that we've created. The leaf spring kit that will be an option on the DELTΔ, it works for the 11.3 wheelbase as well as the 10.7. So that gets you all the D90s. If you want to leaf a D90 in the back for more scale points, you can do that. You can do it for the Hilux or Marlin build. You can leaf spring the back, but the holes are set. So whereas the C-Max has lots of adjustability for wheelbases and suspension setups, the DELTΔ chassis is specifically designed for a few different options, and then it's set.
What stops somebody from drilling new holes at the back to actually extend the wheelbase to a 12-inch?
Easy.
So this is easily done.
Easily
it is going to screw up a little bit the rear geometry, but not a lot.
Not much. Not much. If you adjusted your center of gravity with the longer wheelbase in the back, you'd probably still have incredible performance with it. Yep. It's a tunable chassis. One of the things that I wanted to do in the front, you'll notice in the front here that there's 3 different sets of front shock tower holes. They're already pre-threaded in the chassis. And why would you need 3 different sets? Okay. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because we have, you can see them right there. There's just underneath my head there. There's 3 holes on the top you can see, and then there's 2 just to the one side of it underneath. So what that's actually allowing you to do is move the shock tower around on the chassis. Let me get a shock tower and I'll show you right there.
I feel like Vanna White.
Don't look like Vanna White.
Don't look like Vanna
White. That's a good one. So the shock tower will sit up here in this particular position, but you could also move it over here. You can also move it down here. So what you're doing is actually tuning the front suspension a little bit, depending on what axles what axle setup you're using. We've left a couple of options in there because we do intend to eventually offer this with a different set of axles on it, and getting all that perfected is still in the works. And one of the complications that we run into when running different types of axles on these scale trucks is that the motor can and the transmission are all trying to take up the same amount of space as the front axle is. So if you have a centered axle, if your drive shaft is actually coming down the center of the truck, then you literally can't do it on this chassis. which takes out the option for using bolt-on SCX2 axles, for instance. You can't do that. You have to use a modified SCX2 axle or an offset diff. There's a bunch of things that are limitations on it because of the scale drivetrain. But what I keep saying to myself when I'm thinking through these things and designing on the computer is I say to myself, what real truck in real life on the highway has a centered axle in the front?
Yeah, you want to keep it scale.
Zero have a centered axle in the front. And it's the same reasons that we have trouble doing it on scale truck builds. Because the transmission and the motor are trying to take up the same space. So it's very difficult to get a centered axle onto a scale drivetrain. For that reason, we're only offering these at the beginning with this particular axle set, because we know that this is working and it works well, and we've proven all of the parts.
Okay, my next question is twin I-beams for the front. When is that coming?
That is a whole different type of monster right there. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of scale trucks that actually have twin I-beams in the front. They actually are 4x4s that have them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's make it happen.
That would be
tiny.
That would be a pretty interesting project. We've done the long arm radius arms already on the 44 axle, so that we've got that done already, and that works well as well because there's still an offset diff. Okay. Creating all of those swing arm parts for the front there, I think we may have some really tight space in the front. You might have to make a bigger scale truck than these are.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be crazy tight. Yeah. Good question. I've seen it done a couple times, though. People have been doing it on their own.
Good.
It's possible. Trying to look through some of these comments here now. Somebody, I think a little bit back further, somebody was talking about pricing for the factory built trucks. So this the Delta chassis has a lot of the same components that we use in our other truck builds. We use the same transmission combo. We use the same transfer case. We've got all new drive shafts, new axles. There's a bunch of new stuff, new chassis rails. But one of the good parts about it is that the rail is a lot more simple than a C-Max, for instance. It's not a C-channel, so actually the rail cost is a little bit lower than it is on the C-Max. Okay. And even though a lot of the components are about the same pricing, the Delta chassis actually comes in, I think it's like $40 cheaper than a C-Max. Okay. So you're saving a few bucks on that just because it's a little easier to manufacture the parts. Otherwise, we're using a lot of proven parts in this truck. So there's a couple of new things on it, but we've also had really good success with the drive shafts. We've had really good success with the axle sets and stuff. So the parts are proven, but at the same time, some of it's new.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it looks very promising, that's for sure. I was going to get myself an SCX10 2 kit, but now I'm thinking of maybe changing my mind and getting a different type of kit.
We're pretty excited to see all the different builds that are going to go on these. With the 3 wheelbase options, I think there's going to be some interesting flavors of trucks.
So what are your 3 wheelbase?
The 3 wheelbases are 252, which is the really short 9.8 inch. Okay. The 272, which is the typical 2-door Jeep style. It also fits on the D90s, any of those 272 wheelbases. 11.3 is the next one. The 11.3 is the typical Hilux, Marlin, Blazer, those body sizes there. That with this 11.3 wheelbase, I believe it's 287 for that. That wheelbase is very common. The Bronco you see back there, we've done the hard body Bronco with that, and it's also the same wheelbase as this. So there's a lot of builds like that. And the rear leaf spring kit that will come out in January, it's also set up on this chassis for a direct bolt-on for the TEN-SCTE, which is the 287, and then the 272. So good bolt-on.
Cool. You're coming up with cool options.
Yep, gives people a little bit of chance to tune it and change the suspension.
And these wheels are just crazy nice and amazing. Do you have stock of these wheels right now?
Yeah, the wheels come in and out of stock for sure. That's our mini mag.
That's a 1.5, I think.
Yeah, 1.5 fits 1.7 and 1.5 tires. The mini mag, you'll see there's a brand new wheel hub there too, which we haven't released yet, but we're manufacturing something that we call a simple hub.
Okay.
That's what these are. They use a regular socket to attach them. You just get your, tool set 8 millimeters or tool set 5/16 wrench size. This is a regular socket. It just goes right on the wheel hub, drops right on, done. You don't need any special tools. It bolts right on. And new simple hubs are very inexpensive for us to manufacture in-house. So we manufacture those cheap. We sell them cheap. They'll be a great value. And then these, this one here, you got a little bit of a red hub on there. All I did was Sharpie the end of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Throw that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really nice. A nice finish. See if the camera is gonna. That's the front.
Yeah, simple hub. A little bit of texture on it. It covers over the axle stub just perfectly, and there's no press in, lock nut, or any of that stuff that falls apart. We've actually just got the threads. They're form threaded right into the aluminum, very strong, and simple to install.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep. We should have those out and also at the end of December. So the new wheel hub.
Cool. If you have any question, if you're watching this video live, post your questions. We'll answer them. If they're after the video's been live broadcast, post your question. I'll try to get Chris to answer them if I can't. And we'll try to get some tiny trucks built. He's got fun. Like 8 chassis, I think, lined up here on the ceiling.
We started doing factory built trucks, I guess on a small scale about a year ago or so, and then it's been really picking up. We have a lot of customers that are asking us for full builds.
So I was looking at your website for that yesterday, but I couldn't find out where to go. Yeah. Is it you pick your chassis and then there's a selection to build it for me, or what?
So the nice part about doing custom trucks is that we actually interact with the customer. Okay. So most of the builds that we do are actually done by full custom order. So somebody will say, I want a Defender. I want to use the Raffi body kit. Can you put the chassis on it or whatever? Sometimes people already have a body like a LC70 or something that's full custom paint. And then we'll actually create a chassis, an LC70 pre-built chassis for it, match it into their body that they've already had custom painted. And so a lot of that is custom work. You can't just click that on the website. Okay. The factory built trucks that we do sell, for instance, something very similar to this, this literally will come in a box as a factory built roller or slider, I guess they call them. Okay. And then you put in your electronics and wheels and your body kit on your own, and then you can do your hobbying from there. So those are available for sale in the factory built section. Okay. The chassis, axles, drivetrain kits, they're already pre-built. And lots of varieties of those. We're going to have the Range Rover one will be out in another 3 weeks available. Mm-hmm. There's a Defender kit that you can use for the 90 size, Defender 110. We've got leaf spring left drop axles, leaf spring right drop axles, full Bronco radius arm kits, LC70, narrow axle, full radius arms. There's a lot of variety there now.
Looks like Peter says he wants to see an 8th scale GCM chassis.
What's the body? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, because theoretically this is an 8th scale.
This is 8th scale right here. And
so
my
the body is small. In real life,
it is.
A Suzuki Samurai is small.
It's a tiny truck. The FJ40, if it's at the Florida store right now, but if it was here, it's also about 1/8 scale, and it's so much bigger than this. It's the longer wheelbase than this. It's wider by almost a full inch, I think, and it's at least an inch taller. It's just a massive truck, but they're both 1/8 scale already.
Cool.
Yeah. As far as numbers go, right? You take the original wheelbase and then you match it to this and see what you get, and it's 1/8.
I'm glad I brought my SUV because now I got room to bring this home.
Yeah.
I heard you're packing them up and shipping them out somewhere.
These, I'm taking actually these 3 new DELTΔ builds are coming with me down to the Florida store tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm really glad you could make it up today and see these before they get all dirty and jammed in a suitcase.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, pretty exciting. And I'll be able to get some nice trail time down there and get away from this white stuff there, the cosmic cake batter that keeps falling from the sky.
Now the Toyota's working. This one's working. Those are the only two that are working right now.
Yep.
YJ's not working.
I will wire up the JK today and put the rims and tires on that,
Okay.
and then they are going to drop into the hard case and off to the airport we go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, have you already pre-test and pre-run this? You must.
So yeah, so the chassis has been run around a little bit already. So many of the components have already been used several times.
The axles, the drivetrain.
We've changed some of the things like the shock mount positions and things like that, but the essence of the truck has already been proven already for years.
Cool.
So at this point, all we have to really do is make sure that we're building them correctly. We are going to do some trail testing on them and actually do some, hill climb testing, change tires, see how that affects it, make sure that we can see if we change the center of gravity, how does that affect it with the way that the anti-squat is built in and whatnot.
I'd love to see this thing handle my 52-degree hill at home.
Yeah,
to see how it would.
I would too, actually. Yeah, it's with the center of gravity being right in the middle of the door there.
Yeah.
And the short wheelbase, I can actually get it, pretty friggin' high actually before it even thinks of going over at the back. So.
Well, especially that you have short shocks, and people don't realize that the longer you have the shock, and when you have a throwback or a bounce back, it actually throws the center of your gravity back a lot. Like you get a back kick, and the more travel you have, also when you go side hilling, as soon as it starts going a little bit, well, you have all that momentum that brings you over. Yeah. So sometimes I think myself a short shock actually works a little bit better. So
short shock is they can work a lot better than long if the suspension geometry doesn't match. Yeah. So it's actually it's a marriage between the travel and the suspension rates, and then where the power is being transferred into the chassis. And that matters a lot. Like you see people sometimes are on the forums and Facebook and stuff, they're talking about putting link risers on Viterra chassis and things like that. And what's the purpose of link risers? Well, you're actually trying to change that instant center that we showed on the other picture. You're trying to move that around and match it with your center of gravity. There's no one size fits all with these, Mm-hmm. Where you set up your suspension needs to match with the rest of the truck.
Yeah, some people probably did not see that picture, so we'll show that picture again real quick for some people that have just joined us. So let me show this real quick. Here's the picture he's talking about.
Yeah. So if you put a link riser on that, for instance,
link riser would go here.
Yeah, if the top links were mounted higher, right now the top link is mounted right under the D. Okay. If you move your mouse over to the DELTΔ.
Yeah.
The top link is mounted right about there. If you lift that up and imagine the orange line going much higher, what's going to happen is this orange line, if you lift the link riser up here, the orange line is going to go all the way across. It's going to go through your center of gravity, and it's not going to meet up with this bottom orange line until somewhere over top of your front tire. Like you're completely changing the way that the truck is designed to move. And do you really want to make your front end lift under power?
Okay.
Right? Or do you want to put the lifting of the truck directly under the center of gravity?
Now, some people actually say also that top link, if it's up higher, when you're under stress or under torque, it actually helps push down your front.
Well,
because it's up higher, it's pushing up, so it's pushing back your front back down.
Like I say, there's no one size fits all with this stuff. So you have to match your center of gravity with your geometry. You have to match that with your suspension movement and travel and anti-dive, anti-squat. All that stuff is actually just math like this. That's just math that you can do on your own vehicle and actually see where it is, because moving the top link up 3 millimeters doesn't seem like a lot, but it would completely totally change that picture.
Yeah. And the only way to really know that is if you climb a hill or you do one thing, but you try that same exact hill after you've done that modification to see if it did perform better or
what
not.
happens. Yeah, exactly. So, and shock changes, I'm going to suggest too that when you do shock changes on a truck, you should also do the same kind of tuning.
True.
You know? If you want to change the shocks on your truck, you should probably go back to the same rock hill climb, try it again, change maybe your shock spring rates, or change the position of the shock, the different type of oils, and try to get a tune that matches the entire vehicle. And center of gravity matters a lot too. Like on this truck here, the center of gravity that you saw in the picture has the battery right back here. It's actually in the gas tank.
Okay.
So we're using a 200-gram battery that's inside the gas tank, and that's how we got the CFG right here. So if I take that 200 grams and I moved it, say, under the seat, I have room for it. If I moved it under the seat, my center of gravity would go forward quite a bit, which would change the way the whole truck drives. So the balance has to be there. And everybody needs to tune that for themselves, you know?
You know this guy? Jose 67 UK. I've only just started my FJ60 project, and now a DELTΔ on paper for my next project.
That's so funny. Yeah, the 60 is beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to see some of those get finished up.
Yes,
that's really cool.
So there's a lot of cool stuff coming in the roadmap, which is really neat and exciting to see.
Yeah, it's neat.
But the people that are coming out with new bodies for these, like this styrene body, is just
I'm really happy with that. Yeah.
But the fact that you've actually built a roll bar that actually fits in there, it is neat and will protect it when you roll. But if you don't have it, it could be very dangerous for this to actually break, because it's very heavy. So
this thing, I've actually been filming on my bench video here. I've been filming the build of this truck for about 3 weeks now.
Okay.
And I'm going to just take all of those clips from day after day, week after week, and I'm going to compile them all into a nothing to something build video for this truck, and it'll get released on YouTube probably next week.
Now, if somebody wanted to buy a cage, would you build a cage and sell it, or that's too custom?
I mean, if we were building a complete truck for somebody, which we've done several times, if we do that, then we would, if they wanted that, we would build a cage that would be a custom fit.
Yeah,
you know,
makes sense.
Yeah, it's not production stuff for us. Cool. Production stuff for us is going to be all the hard parts: wheels, chassis, drivetrain, axle sets. This is the kind of stuff that we do. That's actually the sales for GCM. Things like the inner fenders, the body mounting, the side skids, and all that stuff. We design them and we use them and we engineer them. We print them here. But we make them for free on Shapeways most of the time, because everybody's got a printer and they can do it themselves. You know what I mean? So it's really important to just let people play with that.
Yeah, what's nice with Shapeways is you can download the file and print it yourself, or get them to print it.
Yep, you have options there.
And you can select your material most of the time, so that's a nice stuff.
And these are, you'll know that if this stuff is in our Shapeways store, that we've already engineered it to fit the particular chassis that it's made for. We have inner fenders for lots and lots and lots of different C-Max builds that are already available, mounts and skids and all that stuff. So and print them at home.
And some people will print them at home. I'm debating, if I start printing at home, I'll print a lot of different stuff. So.
Well, you have a lot of car variety, eh?
Yeah.
You have a lot of trucks variety, so I think you might have to sign off of YouTube forever after you get a 3D printer.
Yeah, I won't have time for YouTube.
No time. You'll be doing 3D printing all the time. That'd be it.
Well, I have a C-Max at home. I don't have a skeleton. I do have the older one, which is my son's Jeep.
The Cross Canyon.
Cross Canyon chassis.
Yeah.
I have the C-Max on my Winnebago, and now I'm going to have to get one of these guys now.
A DELTΔ for your short wheelbase.
Yeah.
You know what you could do is build one like this on your DELTΔ, and then just take your TF2 body right off and plop it right on here.
Good. But then what do I do with my TF2?
Well, you'd have two
It handles
chassis,
differently.
two chassis in one truck.
What if I get a GMC?
Yeah, you put a blazer on it.
Blazer on it.
There you go.
The body is about $220 Canadian, and it's all finish.
It's a nice. That's the pre-built one.
Yeah,
those are nice.
Yeah,
I like those.
And the hood opens and everything, so that would be awesome for that.
Yeah, and then by then we'll have the blazer inner fender kit and all that ready for it too. So you just snap it together, really.
Oh man, more money, more money to spend.
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta ask for a GCM gift card.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of for all of your birthdays and holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for letting me walk in, even though I just knocked and just walked right in and say, I got my laptop, let's do a live stream. So
I appreciate you coming.
Taking the time.
The one thing that I don't know how to do is all this live feed stuff here on the Hangout. So I'm glad you're up on all that. That's good.
I do it once in a while.
Yeah. Once every week.
Yeah. Usually every week I do RC talk. It's Thursday night. I did a short one last night because I drove over 8 hours straight from the States. Got home, talked to the wife a little bit, started my stream, and then my energies just like went down. And then I just said, okay, I got to go to bed. I got to rest.
Yeah.
So I decided to come here and do a live stream instead with Chris. So it was cool.
Bill says the mini mags are beadlocks. Yes, all of our wheels are beadlocks.
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of new products coming from our store, so pay attention to the Facebook feeds and stuff.
And you have GCM US, GCM UK now?
No, it's in France.
In France, okay.
For the Europe market.
Europe, okay.
Yeah.
And you have GCM.ca, so that's cool.
We have GCMRacing.ca in Canada. TinyTrucks.com is the USA store.
Okay. And what's the Canadian?
And then
French?
JSScale.net is our dealer in France, and they serve all of the European market.
Cool. And they have some stock of your stuff, and they probably order as they need it?
They do. They have rotating stock, and they should have a bunch of these new stuff before the end of the year, I think. So you should be able to get European Deltas and factory builts and C-Maxes over there quite a bit in January.
Okay. And if somebody gets a C-Max chassis to build, they can get it built by you. But if they want to build it, is there an instruction manual like you get in Axial?
So
page
per
page
question.
Instruction. Is there such a manual that exists?
Yes, there is a manual that exists, but we did it in picture form on the Scale Builders Guild.
Okay.
So there is a link in our media page that will send you to the thread for the C-Max assembly, and it goes through every single thing you could want to do, the entire transmission assembly, all the suspension, how to set up your mounting points, and it's all in there.
Is that the same thing for all your chassis, your different chassis?
The skeleton has videos that we did at the beginning of the skeleton assembly. They're on YouTube in the skeleton and chassis section and in the GCM instructions section. Now
the skeleton is an old chassis built that you've had for years. This one is
2014. We did the skeleton in 2014. Yeah.
So it's 4 years now that you've been using the same one.
4 years. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, been used on lots of different bodies, Hilux and Defender and Broncos and Jeep 2-doors and lots of different things. So, and now Delta, we hope will open up some more body options and it's a very, very low chassis.
Yeah. So
that keeps everything low, lots and lots of room for the box. Like the frame is lower than the tires on this, and it has a 3.8 tire size, so it's very, very low truck. So hopefully the way that scale trucking is going, with more realistic body kits coming out, hopefully then we'll be able to adapt the Delta chassis onto a lot of the new bodies.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to be heading home and having some fun.
Hey. Looking forward to getting some new pictures with this out in the dirt. You should see some a whole bunch of new media coming out next week.
Cool.
On the Delta chassis trucks. So I'm really glad you came by. Thanks so much for the talk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we'll be seeing you guys on the trail or on another video. And thanks for dropping in and coming in the chat. It's really appreciated. And we have RC Nixer that just came in. Cool.
I'll read through all the comments and see if I can answer any questions too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.